Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am so incredibly excited for today's guest. She was a pioneer of television, a champion for animals, and quite frankly, the grandmother the entire world wanted. Please welcome the legendary Betty White. Betty, it is such a joy to have you here. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
Well, I suppose most people know me as an actress who spent about 80 years, can you believe that? Playing in everyone's living rooms. Whether I was the happy homemaker, Sue Ann Nivens, or the sweet, slightly confused Rose Nyland from St. Olaf, I was just a girl who loved to perform and loved animals even more.
You are a true icon, Betty. Let's start at the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I was a winter baby. I was born on January 17th, 1922, in a little place called Oak Park, Illinois. It was right outside of Chicago, though we didn't stay there too long before heading west to California.
And what was your given name at birth?
It was actually Betty Marion White. Just Betty.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
You know there is. My parents, Tess and Horace, didn't want me to be burdened with a name that people would constantly shorten into a nickname. They figured if they named me Elizabeth, everyone would just call me Betty anyway. So they decided to save everyone the trouble and put Betty right there on the birth certificate.
That is very practical of them. What was your hometown like growing up?
By the time I was a toddler, we moved to Los Angeles, right during the Great Depression. Even though times were tough for the country, LA felt like a land of opportunity. We lived near Beverly Hills, and it was a bit more like a small town back then than the giant city it is now.
What was your family life like?
I was an only child, and I was so lucky. My mother and father were the funniest people I knew. We were a very close trio. My dad was an electrical salesman, but also a traveling salesman who traded radios for all sorts of things, sometimes even dogs. That's probably where my obsession with animals started.
What kind of kid were you?
I was a total nature girl. I wasn't much for dolls. I wanted to be outside looking at birds or playing with our pets. I was energetic and, I think, a bit of a ham from the start.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
Oh, I suppose the typical things. But honestly, I was such an optimist even then. I think my biggest fear was probably the thought of any animal being lonely or hurt. I just wanted to save every stray in the neighborhood.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
Believe it or not, I wanted to be a forest ranger. That was my big dream. But back then, girls weren't allowed to be forest rangers. So I figured the next best thing was writing and performing. If I couldn't be in the forest, I'd be on the stage.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
I loved writing the school plays. At Horace Mann School, I wrote and played the lead in our graduation play. I also loved anything involving the choir. Singing and acting just felt like breathing to me.
What was your first job?
Well, after I graduated from Beverly Hills High School, my very first professional gig in entertainment was singing on an experimental television show in 1939. We danced the Merry Widow Waltz. But for a real job, I worked in a theater and eventually did some modeling and radio work during the war.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I don't know if I felt different, but I certainly felt a drive that didn't quit. While others were waiting for the phone to ring, I was trying to figure out how to produce my own shows. I realized early on that if I wanted a seat at the table in this new thing called television, I might have to build the table myself.
What's a decision that changed everything for you but felt small at the time?
Deciding to do a live 5.5-hour talk show called Hollywood on Television with Al Jarvis. It sounded like an exhausting amount of work, and it was. But it taught me how to be comfortable in front of a live camera for hours on end. That was the foundation for everything.
What was your biggest break?
It had to be Life with Elizabeth. I wasn't just the star. I was one of the first women to produce a sitcom. It gave me a level of control and a name in the industry that opened every door that followed.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Radio was tough. I go to auditions and they tell me I wasn't photogenic enough for film, or my voice wasn't right for certain parts. Then World War II happened, and I put everything on hold to join the American Women's Voluntary Services. I spent those years driving a PX truck to troops in the hills of Hollywood.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. I'm far too stubborn for that. I figured if one door closed, I'd just climb through a window.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
I always said I didn't eat anything green. I loved my hot dogs, my red vines, and a good vodka on the rocks with a twist of lemon at the end of the day. But really, the habit was just staying busy. I loved to work. Keeping your mind sharp with crossword puzzles is a must too.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I'd be working at a zoo or a national park. No doubt about it. I'd be the lady talking to the giraffes all day.
What was your life like before fame?
It was very simple. It was about family, my dogs, and trying to find a way to pay the bills by doing what I loved. I lived with my parents for a while as I was starting out, and those were very happy times.
How did relationships change after success?
It can be tricky. Some people see you differently, but I tried to keep my circle small and full of people who knew Betty, not just the lady on the screen. My third husband, Alan Ludden, was the love of my life. He met me when I was already working, so he just got it.
Did fame bring happiness?
Fame itself? No. But the work that led to the fame brought me immense happiness. Being able to make people laugh is a privilege I never took for granted.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The lack of privacy can be a bit much sometimes, and the gossip magazines loved to invent things. But honestly, if the worst thing that happens is people wanting to say hello to you in a grocery store, you've got it pretty good.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
People often thought I was exactly like the characters I played. When I played Sue Ann Nivens, they thought I was a shark. When I played Rose, they thought I was, well, a bit dim. I'd like to think I was a bit of both. Sharp when I needed to be, but always kind.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
My only real regret was not marrying Alan Ludden sooner. He asked me for a year before I finally said yes. I wasted a whole year we could have had together.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
Maybe that I was this fragile old lady. I had a very naughty sense of humor. I loved a good joke, even the slightly off-color ones.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
During the early days of the Betty White show in the 50s, I had a wonderful tap dancer named Arthur Duncan on the show. He was African American, and some stations in the South threatened to boycott us if we didn't take him off. I just told them, I'm sorry, but he stays. Live with it. We lost the show eventually, but I wouldn't change that decision for anything.
Did fame and fortune change your life?
It allowed me to give back. That's the biggest thing. It gave me the resources to support animal health and welfare on a massive scale. That's where the fortune went, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My mom and dad for giving me my sense of humor, and my husband Alan for showing me what true supportive love looked like.
What was life like in your final years?
I was very quiet, staying at my home in Los Angeles. I spent a lot of time with my golden retriever Pontiac and doing my crosswords. I was still working right up until the end, though, doing voiceovers and preparing for my 100th birthday celebration.
Speaking of your career, what were you working on before you passed away?
I was getting ready for a big movie special called Betty White 100 Years Young, a birthday celebration. I wanted to share my centennial with all my fans.
When and where did you pass away?
I passed away on December 31st, 2021, just a few days shy of my 100th birthday. I was at my home in Los Angeles, California.
What happened?
It was very peaceful. I passed away in my sleep from natural causes following a mild stroke I had experienced a few days earlier. I just went to sleep and didn't wake up.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I was actually an honorary forest ranger. The U.S. Forest Service finally gave me the badge when I was 88 years old. My childhood dream finally came true.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
Oh, every few months the internet would decide I had died, while I was perfectly fine at home having a sandwich. It happened so often I started to find it quite funny.
What was your most unique habit?
I love to stay up late. I was a total night owl. I do my best thinking and puzzle solving at 2 in the morning.
What was your favorite food?
Hot dogs and french fries. And I loved a good tuna salad sandwich.
Did you have a favorite restaurant?
I loved Pink's Hot Dogs in Los Angeles. You can't beat a good chili dog.
What was your favorite book?
I loved anything by Robert Ruark, but mostly I read scripts and books about animal behavior.
Did you have any known rivalries?
There was always talk about me and B. Arthur not getting along on the Golden Girls. B was a very different person than I was. She was a bit more serious, and I was the one always telling jokes and talking to the crew. We weren't best friends, but I had immense respect for her talent.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
Back in the radio days, I once did a show where I had to play a high society lady and a barking dog in the same scene. I was switching back and forth so fast I nearly made myself dizzy.
What's your funniest behind-the-scenes moment?
On the set of The Golden Girls, we laughed so hard during the herring circus stories that we could barely get through the takes. The more the director yelled action, the more we giggled.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
I wasn't a big spender on jewelry or cars, but I did spend a good amount on my home in Carmel. It was my sanctuary, looking out at the ocean and the birds.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Don't ever lose your sense of humor, and don't ever think you're too big to do the small jobs. And most importantly, find something you're passionate about besides your work. For me, it was animals. It keeps your soul balanced.
Betty, this has been an absolute delight. Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Just that life is very short, even if you live to be almost 100. So enjoy every minute of it. Be kind to each other, and for heaven's sake, be kind to the animals. Thank you so much for having me, Calvin. It was just lovely to chat again.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. We've been talking with the one and only Betty White, a woman who taught us that aging can be done with grace, wit, and a whole lot of hot dogs. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.